glad for the discussion. I enjoy it very much. But we are now going to head back to the 16th century. Okay? So, please make sure again that you go back and look at that art. Your next chapters, we're going to do some stuff with art, so make sure that you get that stuck in your mind and what that, yes ma'am. And we're doing it at the end of the hour. Yes. Do what, sweetie? We're starting on New Monarchs, Exploration, and the 16th Century. All right, so here is a moment for me to take a breath and remind you of dates. So this new set of notes that we're beginning. Oh, wait, before we do that, let's look at page 22 of the last set of notes. Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, if I don't give this to you now, I'll forget.
Yeah, walk on up. Give it to me.
I also have that. I've had it for since the second
Your
grade.
adorable skirt.
Thank you.
It's so cute.
I got it from a thrift store.
It's awesome.
I love thrift stores. I love thrifting.
And I find things in there but you have to really be in the mood. Like you have to be in
I
the,
got this from the thrift store and it made my grandma all thrifts that did not fit again.
So
your grandma fitted it to you? Yeah. You need to learn how to sew, because when you learn how to sew, you can do all those things. All right, let's look on page 22 before. Yes, sir, Ben. I'm sorry.
what about pages like 19 to 20?
19 and 20,
All the way up to
the charts. All those charts you don't need. I just put, that chart is just stuff that is already in your notes.
Oh, so this, okay, so we're starting.
Yeah, that stuff. Ben asked about all those charts contrasting Middle Ages and Renaissance. First of all, we don't need to know anything about the Middle Ages. And second, for those of you that like charts, everything in your notes are on those charts. If you're a chart person, I don't do this often. I started to do it. It was a whole lot of work. So you get it one time and that's it. But for those of you that like charts, I'm on still the Renaissance notes that start with page 19 or 18, 19, and 20. That is just charts. I'm back on the Renaissance. So you're on the wrong set. Go back to the Renaissance. Start with the Renaissance notes where it says the Renaissance. Flip all the way through until you get to page 18 and 19. It should be at the top. Should be charts. Yes.
We need to know these for the test.
That's the next thing we're going to talk about. Okay? And then on page 21, you've got a set of terms. You do not need to know all these terms. There are way too many. But you should be able to kind of think about what they all are and how they all work. The names, no, you do not need to know all those names. But you do need to know humanism, and you need to know civic humanism. Like on the quiz, I gave somebody an extra point because they actually did civic humanism. Was that you, Hannah? That you actually answered it not just correctly, but emphatically correctly, because it was civic humanism. All I was asking for was that you just got humanism, but civic humanism I gave you. So, like for instance, at the bottom of that, on page 21, on the left-hand chart where it ends with perspective and that other word, that CHIR, I don't know if that means, that's a Italian word for like blending. It's an art word. No, you never need to know that. Like that's not a word. Perspective, no. Stylized faces, no. But you do need to know mannerism, and you need to know El Greco. So it's a mixed bag. I will tell you that in Quizlet, you can find these already made up. If you Google Kagan chat, or not Google, but if you go to Quizlet and enter, and make sure you put our textbook, Kagan Chapter 10 terms, they'll all pull up for you. So there's no reason to redo them unless it helps you to make flashcards. If it helps you to, did you do it?
Not these, but all of the reading questions and answers and maps
You made flashcards?
at Quizlet. Yeah.
You use Quizlet? Or you made a Quizlet for them?
She's the
Yes.
leader.
Okay, I would do that. I would do that yourself. I would not, the only thing I would ever use on Quizlet is terms. And then I would be really, really double checky.
I don't use it.
Okay. Okay. And again, writing stuff down is really important, but making those up for yourself is fantastic.
Everyone else on Quizlet's trying to trick.
Yeah. Okay.
They're out to get me.
Wait, what?
Then if we turn the page,
All of these are fixed.
on page 22,
They know what they're doing.
here is what I highly encourage more than the terms. Way, 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 way more than the terms. I kind of tell you, this is a subunit of high probability area for the AP exam. In the past 10 years, I got to update that because now it's past that. 8 questions have come wholly or in part from this material in this chapter. Below are practice questions that will help you study the topics. So all of you that have said, how do I study for this? What do I study? This is what you study, except cross out number 1. We don't need compare and contrast to Middle Ages.
Wait, for the AP exam or for like your
Test and everything. Test and everything. Now, how would you study for this?
Study.
Yeah, but how would you study? To what extent is the Renaissance a true departure from the past? So how you study for that is you try to answer that question. And you don't need to write it out as an essay. You just write it as a bullet point. To what extent did the Renaissance humanism affect the view of the individual? How did that change? Write that out. Analyze the influence of humanism on Renaissance art. Select at least 3 artists and analyze. That is a really important one because you need to know artists. Yes,
Do
Ben.
we do that now? Like, do we write that, or is that just an example of the question?
No, we're not doing it right now. I'm just reading them out loud to you. But yeah, you need to do that. This is a way to study because again, this is as evidence from the quiz yesterday. This is wake up call that these things are not like regular stuff for you people. All of you really, really smart people, again, don't know how to study because you've never had to study. Don't know how to have to remember things because you've never had to remember things. And it isn't something that comes naturally. Studying is not a natural process, especially if your brain isn't a reading brain. And it isn't a brain that retains what you read. Those of us that can read and retain, we got it made in the shade, as Fonzie used to say. And I can tell you who those people are if you want to know. If you read something and when you recall it, you can recall where it's at on the page, you have a reading brain. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you don't have a reading brain, which means you're going to have to do other things. When I read things and I'm reading to study, I can tell you exactly where it's at on the page. Probably that's why I like to read. That's probably why other people don't. So then you have to come up with something else. I also know that I have to write things down. I have to write things down. So that's my other part, a separate thing that I have to do. So Emma and I were discussing this morning an act. It's going to happen to all of you, especially when we do test questions and you're going to be like, I'm so dumb. And I always tell you, find your dumb question. Find your dumb one that you were like, I don't even know what I was thinking. I'm so dumb. So here is my suggestion, again, always, is to brain purge before you start. And you can do it before the quiz. You can take a blank piece of paper, write everything you know from the quiz. It's not cheating, it's stuff that you know. Write it all down before you take the quiz, and then take the quiz. When we take the test, do the same thing. Write everything you know, every little trick, every little twist, every little Florence Medici's, Venice, traders, all the little things that you have remembered, write them down. And I promise that will do 2 things. Even if what you write down you don't use on the test, it helps alleviate anxiety and stress in your brain, because that is another skill, my friends, that we will be working on, right? Because I kind of already like, we're going to have to write that DBQ in 45 minutes. You're going to have to write an essay in 45 minutes. You're going to have to write another essay in 30 minutes. You're going to have to write short answers in 10 minutes. We're going to start on Friday. Not this Friday, but next Friday. We'll start every Friday. Prompt, 10 minutes, done. Now, it scares the bejesus out of you. The reason it scares the bejesus out of you, one is you've never done it before, but it's like anything else you train for. Does every single person in here do something, dance, something where they have to train, where you do something until you get what's called muscle memory, right? That your brain just takes over and you do it. That's what we're working on. And these are all skills that you don't have. You don't do timed writing. And I promise you they are skills that will serve you the rest of your academic days. The rest of your academic days will be served by learning these skills. when you start college and you take college classes, there's no homework. You just write essays. And you'll be given a blue book. And the essay, you'll be given a list of prompts. Answer one of them, 2 hours at your final exam, for the most part. Some of your classes will only have like 4 grades. And there'll be things in essays. So these are skills that if you learn them, and the very first part of learning this skill is controlling your body. Controlling the adrenaline, controlling the fear, controlling the anxiety. And once you get a hold of that, I promise you can do anything. It's just like, I can't imagine walking up and watching and having everybody watch you and swing a golf club. I can't imagine standing on a free throw line and everybody in the gym watching you try to make a free throw. I mean, all of those things seem way scarier to me than writing an essay. And so that's all the things that we need to learn how to do.
Random question. Like, when you were talking about the essays for college, with the more like mechanical and hands-on, do we still have to do it? So,
Yeah, because you still have to take English, Ben. Yeah, you're still gonna have to take English. So before we move away from page 22, take a look at how many of those questions start to what extent. So when we think about to what extent, we've got some yeses and then we have some nos. So to what extent were women impacted by the Renaissance? If you were a rich woman, you were, right? So to what extent? No, women of nobility were certainly impacted. They were had access to new literature. They had access to art. If you're a poor woman, did the Renaissance do anything to you at all? Absolutely not. So that's to what extent. And again, the College Board loves those questions because it makes you think about a topic, good and bad. So make sure that you look at those. So when you think about studying, these are the types of things that you want to do. Now, here's the other thing. We're a small group, and when I say that you need to study those, it doesn't mean that you need to do all of them. Divide and conquer. This is not homework. You're not turning this in. Certainly you're going to have to trust the people to do a good job, but there's 6 of these. You could divide and conquer. You do one, you do one, you do one. Do it on a Google Doc, share it. These are not assignments. This is study tools. So that's the way that you can create this document that you're going to use to study, that all of you participate, that's not overloading you, right? Now, some of you it won't benefit because you actually have to write it down, but it certainly is a way for you to study and not have an overload, right? College, you're going to make study groups. You're going to be put in with these study groups, people you don't know, you don't like, but at least in this one, you know most of the people are as highly driven as you are academically, and they want to do well, so you've got that kind of added benefit, but you should know that in college you don't get the same thing. All right, so now we're ready to move on to new monarchs. New monarchs, exploration in the 16th century. Again, if you do not know, the 16th century means the 1500s. So you should make sure that you know that when we say 16th century, 1500s. College Board does that interchangeably all the time. One question, what?
Isn't that how it is? Like, because this is the 21st century.
Right.
It's 20.
Right. That's how it is. It's one away from the number. And the College Board will write those questions interchangeably. One time they might talk about the 16th century. The next question they might say the 1500s. So you need to be able to interchangeably make your brain go back and forth like that. Okay? So one of the things, again, that we have to look at is what makes a monarch a new monarch. A monarch is a king, a czar, any of those things. A monarch is someone that holds absolute power. So we have to think about what makes these monarchs new, what makes them different, and what makes them separate from other groups. And the new monarchs that we're really going to look at are just specifically 3 nations: France, England, and Spain. Those, again, for those of you that want to make sure you note that, these are our Western nations. These are our Western European nations: France, Spain, and England. And what is happening, we've got 2 things happening in those 3 countries. The monarch is trying to consolidate power into them, and they're also trying to become the dominant power in Europe. Consolidate means to get everything in one place. Yes, sir.
Can you explain what the new monarchs are again?
The new monarchs are actually, Ben, it's just that first letter A. Consolidate power and created foundation for Europe's first modern nation states. So they're the new monarchs working to gain new power. Consolidate means to put everything in one place. So, like, for instance, if we were to consolidate our school corporations in Sullivan County, we would have one high school, right? We would take North Central and Sullivan and make it one. That's consolidate. Take everything and move it into one. And I don't understand why that's a weird thing, but obviously not from being here. I don't understand why we separate our tax base between two small schools that never have enough money. And if we had one, we'd be one big school and have money. Don't get it, don't understand it, but I'm not from here and I have no allegiance to either place. I don't care if I'm purple or gold or green and whatever. It doesn't make any difference to me. What makes a difference to me is that we separate the tax base instead of one tax base. So our three countries that we're looking at, France, England, and Spain, are going to consolidate power within their country with a secondary aim at becoming the top power in Europe. That is always the goal. What they are trying to gain, if we look at A2, is absolute power. They don't get it, but that's what they're trying to get. Everyone's stepping toward that. We're not going to get that until the 17th century. 100 years later, we're finally going to get it. But these new monarchs begin, what?
Is the 17th century thing important right now? Or will we get to it later?
We're not there. We're in the 16th. Okay. So, new monarchs also not nation states yet. We're still not working, but that's what they're trying to do. So, very, very nicely at the bottom of the page, all of these new monarchs have the same characteristics. We're trying. So we need to think about power. And we're going to talk about power a lot in this class. And we need to think about power as a finite object that we can number and name. And in order to gain power, I have to take it from someone else. So for me to gain power, I have to take power away from someone else. And the two places they want to take the power away from should be very easy is the nobility and the church. That's where I want to take it away from. So B says reduce the power of the nobility, confiscate lands, and then get an army. That's one thing I'm going to do to get rid of the nobility. So I'm going to take you back. Did we get to do the feudal chart in this class last year? Did we get far enough so that we did where somebody was the king?
Yeah.
Somebody was a king and they had all the armies? Okay, so that's the way it is. Remember, our king had no power. This is the Middle Ages. The armies all belong to the nobility. So as the king, I have to wrestle that army away. So I have to reduce your power of nobility through taxation. Now let's draw a line out to the taxation and make sure that we understand this. Do nobles pay the taxes?
Nope.
No, they do not. They pass the tax on to the people, right? So if I'm Lord Foo-Foo-Face and I get a tax bill from King Henry and I see this tax bill, I'm like, oh gosh, I'm going to have to increase my rents. I'm going to have to increase the tax I charge on using the wine press. I'm going to have to increase my tax on the roads. I'm going to have to increase my tax on salt. I have all these things at my disposal to increase so that I'm not actually paying anything. Yes.
So nobility is like
Nobility's what?
nobility is like the governor, like
Kind of. Right. They're the lower level control of an area. I'm going to take their lands. If you don't cooperate with me, I'll just take it away from you. And then again, most importantly, I don't want to hire mercenaries. That's not my goal. My goal is to create a standing army. And that standing army would owe its allegiance to me. And it would be at my disposal should I need to send it out to any of you. So that's the first thing. I have to get control of the nobles. Spain will do that well. England will do that well. France will do that well. Poland will not do it well. Poland doesn't get the opportunity to do that. Poland will always be controlled by the nobility. Always. B, I got to get rid of the power of the church. And there's two reasons. Now, I'm talking about the political power, which the reason being is if we ask all the people, the normal, regular people that live in France and Spain and England, who's the most important person in your life? They'll say the Pope, the church. I got to get that power away from them. Now, we say politically, but what that means is we need to reduce the power of those bishops and archbishops because they report to Rome, not to me. And I somehow have to figure out how to get that power and wrestle that power away from them. The people that will be most successful will be obviously England because they make their own church, and France because France, if I'm not mistaken, even into the 21st century, is the only country that's allowed to pick its archbishop. Everybody else's archbishop, meaning the highest Catholic ranking person in that, is picked by the Vatican. So our archbishop that's located in our North American archbishop that's located in New York, we don't pick that. The Catholic Church in the United States does not pick that. Rome picks that. That makes it a really powerful, and that person is answerable to Rome. France, I think, gets to choose theirs. I know they do. They will after the French Revolution, but I don't know if it's still today. I'm pretty sure France has never given that up. C is to create more efficient bureaucracies. Now, I think for those of you that might know this word bureaucracy, a bureaucracy is just the government's inner workings, the people that run the government. Typically, just because of today's climate, we think of bureaucracy as like red tape, too much bureaucracy. But we can't really get too much right now because we don't really have any. So they set up a bureaucracy. They set up establishing rules and regulations and trade. The reason that this is important is that the people that run the bureaucracy will be that upper middle class. So then I start to owe my good fortune and good fate to the king for appointing me to be on the trade commission or the commission to build post offices. So that bureaucracy also lends itself to an allegiance to that absolute ruler. And that does D, increase the political influence of the bourgeoisie, which means middle class, all you bougie people. Bougie does not mean rich. Do you all know that? Bougie does not mean rich. Bougie is so middle class, it ain't funny. That's what it means. Bougie, bourgeoisie, middle class, not rich people. Yes, ma'am.
What was the definition for
Bureaucracy, runnings of the government. Yeah, it makes me laugh when I see people talking about themselves being bougie. Middle class chick, you go. Increase the political influence of the bourgeoisie. Why do you want to do that? Because if you increase the power of the middle class, you're decreasing the power of the nobility. Nobody wants a democracy, Ben. No democracy. Is that what you said? No.
Wait, so
No
the
Nix
bourgeoisie
9,
is
House of
the
Pine.
middle class.
What?
The bourgeoisie is just the middle class.
Yes.
Then what does the birds work for the bourgeoisie?
What is a what?
No.
I don't get that.
What is a what?
The birds work for the bourgeoisie. They're okay.
The birds? What?
So
There's a joke.
there was this vine
Okay.
where it's this guy and he's talking about how Nixon replaced all of the birds with government surveillance drones, and that's why they sit on electrical wires to recharge. And then he said, at the end of it, he says the birds work for the bourgeoisie, and I thought that was like a government type thing. If it's just the middle class, then what does that have to do with the birds?
Okay.
People are stupid.
Okay.
I know it's not real.
Okay, that's kind of funny.
I guess because it sounds good, I don't know. But that would be one thing I hope that you would learn in this class. That bourgeoisie means middle class. It means middle class. No, Ben, there is no democracy. So please do not think that's where we're headed. Do not think that is what anybody wants. These new monarchs do not want democracy. The last place democracy will begin is in Europe. No, nix, no, not trying to do democracy. We will massacre you if you think you're doing democracy. Great Britain tries it, the Peterloo Massacre. They kill about 400 people who are just wanting free press. Nope, we're gonna kill you with swords. We're gonna walk through this big crowd of people, of women and children. Not just swords, but dull swords. So we really have to stab you, not even slice you. So yeah, Waterloo. Not Waterloo, Peterloo Massacre. It's a big deal. No, Waterloo's Napoleon. Got my loos mixed up. So yeah, no democracy, Ben. No democracy. We don't want that. If you want that, you got to come someplace else, and that would be sail across the Atlantic to these things called the 13 colonies.
But it isn't, I know it's not, but isn't the power to the regular people democracy? That's the right thing, right?
Yes.
So like we're a
Yes.
democracy.
Yes. No, not having that. Okay. Increased political influence of the bourgeoisie. Bourgeoisie bought much needed revenues to the crown. So how did that happen? And maybe this is where we do the whole bougie thing. But eventually you will be able to purchase a title of nobility. So what's going to happen over time? Not in the 16th century, but by the time we get to the 17th century, this has worked. And while the nobility have titles, I have the title of a marquis or a duke or a countess, I don't have money. And these bourgeoisie, now this middle class, they are incredibly wealthy. But the status won't allow them to move. We do not have upward mobility. In the United States and in democracies, you have upward mobility, right? You can move up that social ladder, right? That you can be born to a poor family and through circumstances make yourself Bill Gates, right? We have that upward mobility. There's no upward mobility. You stay. So the bourgeoisie will begin to say, we got to get out of this. And the king will say, I need money. I know. I will sell titles. And so many of these bourgeoisie will begin purchasing titles of nobility. And those titles of nobility will be what will be called titles of the robe, meaning they purchase them. You look so cute. Oh, look, you're going to feel the fridge for
Matt.
Bro, I'm so tired. I said people are my friends.
The purchasing of
We're
the
still on this page, right?
There's no more.
Okay, I wrote so much stuff on this
Yeah, I
page.
know. I felt like so much shit that
OG, okay. That's very similar there. But no more OG nobilities.
First of all, you're not as Abed. I do not see your value now. Does that make me Annie or Britta?
You're 100%. Yeah.
Really? I have Annie anxiety though. I'm not like laid back.
Are you most likely? Never mind. I'm not gonna say that.
What, Ben?
Well, let me know if she answers you.
So, you know, and I'll say, okay, let me know.
Yeah, let me know.
What's
Yes.
So
What's
you
the
said when the king sells titles, that didn't happen until
the
the
aggressive opinion?
17th century. Yeah, we're not there yet. We're not there yet. Okay. And increase debt by taking out loans from bankers. That again will be one way that they will start to consolidate this power. And then on the top of page 2 is where we will end for the day, is opposition. Okay? So let's just say, because this is an easy way, I'm the king, you guys are all nobles. I'm taking your stuff, I'm taking your land, I'm charging you higher taxes, I'm taking away your armies. Surely you understand you're not going to go quietly into the night, right? We're not going to just quietly go into the night. So, nobles resented the decline. Clergy members see the Pope as their leader. And independent towns will start to resist this more centralized. Now, we're not going to talk about how they're going to do it because each place is going to do it differently. Some will go to flat out, all out war about it. Some will work quietly in and amongst themselves, okay? All right, so we're going to stop on page 2 with France and begin our look at France and the Spider King. Now, here's the other sad part of this, that because you guys are no longer taught Roman numerals, you have to know Roman numerals. Because they will put the Roman numerals on the test. And they will put Louis the 14th, which is Louis XIV. And they will also have Louis the 16th, which is Louis XVI. You have to know that. Because even if you know the answer, oh, it's Louis the 14th, you've got to figure out Louis the 14th. Really, that's the only one that we really need to know, because the other ones are Charles the First and Charles the Second. All right, I'm going to pass out sticker charts. So, what? So we have 2 sets of sticker charts for quiz and for test, and you can see they're different. Stickers for quizzes are little. Stickers for tests are big. So make sure you have these with you. What?
But Maddie, yeah, you were 100% correct.
That is so pretty.
Okay.
Yes.
Have you watched Community at all? I need someone to back me up that she's 100% right at.
Oh, I don't know why you gave me 2. I don't know.
Do you guys have offices or are you just running? Oh, we have offices. What are you running for, my friend?
Yes, I will.
Maddie, you were 100% right.
You should put as your part of your campaign is, I make lots of Quizlets, so I'm used to recording lots of information.
You want to know it?
Why at night?
Just like creepingly recording people.
We need good people. We need good people within.
Oh, that sucks. You kicked out the Skittle.
It went straight to my lunch.
Yeah. 23. So
Went
about the
straight
same
on
lunch,
football.
but not bad. Yeah.
All you get.
Have you worked on the quiz? I mean,
Yeah.
do you have a goal?
I think
She's-
it's like the 21s or something.
No, it's not.
Yes. You agree?
Have you even
Yeah.
seen it?
I watched the entire all.
Is that a doable time, Hannah?
I watched
Yeah, I
it
think so,
when
yeah.
I was like, oh, okay, children love my
She knows that.
I want to write a task.
Annie mellows out.
All right, 3 stickers on quizzes yesterday. Hannah, Maddie, and Maggie.
Thanks.
So we got our first stickers. It's on your quiz chart.
I put mine up in the front so it looks pretty and I can only see them.
You're yes. Maddie, you haven't done drugs.
On quizzes, it's only to a B minus. On tests, it's a C. So on quizzes, you have to get a B minus, and that cutoff yesterday was 27. So those of you that got 26s, you're one off. So on quizzes, you have to get a B minus. On tests, it's a C.
Dude, your whole third hour class seemed me bawl my eyes out when I walked out. Everybody was like,
They what?
because I was crying, you know, and everybody was like, what is wrong?
Oh, I didn't see you cry. You were
Yeah.
crying?
Yeah, it's not a big deal.
What were you crying about?
Because I did really bad.
Oh, when you left yesterday.
Yeah, I was not
I
okay.
swear I studied.
I set the expectations low, so when I